American politics in 2025 has just taken a shocking turn. From a high-profile assassination to federal crackdowns in major cities, the country is on edge. What I'm about to reveal could change everything you thought you knew about U.S. politics. Welcome back to the channel. I'm glad you're here because today's updates are intense, raw, and extremely important. Every story we cover is tied to bigger themes: the erosion of democratic norms, the rise of political violence, and the federal government's increasingly aggressive role in shaping the lives of everyday Americans. Whether you follow politics casually or closely, the events of 2025 demand attention. So let's dive into what's happening and why it matters. The most shocking and heartbreaking story right now is the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Kirk, the suspect, a 22-year-old man from Utah, has reportedly confessed and expressed opposition to Kirk's political views. This brutal attack has sent shockwaves across the nation. For supporters, Kirk was a passionate defender of conservative values. For critics, he was a deeply polarizing figure. But regardless of where you stood politically, the fact remains: an American citizen was murdered for his speech and his beliefs. The killing has ignited a fierce national debate about free speech and political violence. Conservatives see it as proof that the left's rhetoric has gone too far. Progressives counter that extremism and intolerance on all sides are feeding a cycle of violence. Even those outside the political arena are stunned, asking how America reached the point where disagreement is settled with bullets instead of arguments. Utah's Republican governor, Spencer Cox, has called for an off-ramp from hostility, urging citizens to recognize that the fabric of the nation is fraying. But the reality is, tensions remain high, and Kirk's death may become a rallying cry for even harsher political divides. And as if that weren't enough, the federal government under President Donald Trump is making bold and controversial moves. One of the most significant is the deployment of National Guard troops to Memphis. The Trump administration argues that rising crime in Democrat-led cities is out of control, and that federal intervention is necessary to restore law and order. Critics, however, see it as a dangerous overreach of executive power, undermining local authority and setting a precedent for using military forces in civilian areas. Residents are caught in the middle, wondering whether more troops will bring safety or escalate tensions further. This move has sparked questions about the balance of power between states and the federal government. For decades, debates have raged about local control of policing and crime policy. Now, in 2025, we are witnessing the federal government step directly into city streets, bypassing local leaders. For some, it feels like decisive action. For others, it feels like authoritarianism in motion. And it is not just about Memphis. Many believe this deployment is a test case, a signal that more cities could soon see similar federal crackdowns. At the same time, the Trump administration is pushing aggressive cultural and political policies. From proposals to criminalize flag burning, to stricter immigration measures, to revising speech protections, the White House is flexing its power in ways that critics say threaten civil liberties. Early this year, Trump also dismissed numerous inspectors general, the independent watchdogs who oversee federal agencies. That move weakened one of the country's key accountability mechanisms and raised alarms about the erosion of checks and balances. All of this is taking place against the backdrop of rising grassroots resistance. Across the country, protests and movements are emerging in response to what many see as authoritarian drift. The 50,501 movement, known for organizing demonstrations in all 50 states on the same day, has become a symbol of nationwide defiance. The Trump takeover protests are challenging redistricting maps and gerrymandering that appear to heavily favor Republicans. And the No Kings protests are calling out what demonstrators describe as an imperial presidency. These are not small, isolated events. They are large, coordinated actions that reveal a deep undercurrent of anger and fear among many Americans. So what does this mean for the rest of 2025? First, we can expect more political violence. Experts are warning that Kirk's assassination may not be an isolated case. When political figures become targets, and when heated rhetoric normalizes the idea that opponents are enemies rather than fellow citizens, violence becomes more likely. The FBI and local police are already preparing for more threats, and security at political events is tightening. Second, the question of federal versus state power will only intensify. The deployment of the National Guard in Memphis may expand to other cities, and governors will push back. Legal battles could erupt, and the courts may be forced to decide whether Trump's actions are constitutional. Either way, this struggle over control could redefine how power is exercised in the United States. Third, public trust in institutions is eroding at alarming speed. From watchdogs being dismissed, to elections being reshaped by partisan maps, to protests filling the streets, Americans are increasingly skeptical of whether democracy is functioning as it should. And this mistrust is not confined to one side of the political spectrum. Both conservatives and progressives feel that the system is rigged, just in different directions. That shared sense of betrayal is dangerous, because when people stop believing in institutions, they look for alternatives. Sometimes those alternatives are peaceful reform. Other times, they are violent upheaval. But amid all the chaos, there are also signs of resilience. Millions of Americans, across political divides, are still demanding accountability, fairness, and freedom. Protests, activism, community organizing, and alternative media are giving voice to frustration while keeping the spirit of democracy alive. Whether those efforts succeed in shaping the future is unclear, but they prove that the story of America is not yet finished. As we wrap up today's breaking news update, one thing is undeniable. U.S. politics in 2025 is entering uncharted territory. The assassination of Charlie Kirk, the federal crackdown in Memphis, the cultural battles over free speech, the purge of inspectors general, the mass protests, these are not small ripples. They are waves crashing against the shores of American democracy. And the choices made in the coming months will decide whether those waves build a stronger nation or wash away the principles that have guided it for centuries. If you found this video insightful, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and click the notification bell so you don't miss future updates. I want to hear from you in the comments. Which of these developments shocked you the most? Was it the assassination, the federal deployments, or the protests sweeping the nation? Share your thoughts below, because your perspective matters and helps this channel grow. In our next video, we'll look at how these events are reshaping public opinion, what the latest polling reveals about trust in institutions, and whether Americans are prepared for even bigger changes ahead. So stay tuned, because the story is just beginning. Thank you for watching. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.